I wanted to ask about cats.
Yes.
I was very intrigued with what they perceive and what they see.
They can peer into other dimensions. They will often see things that are invisible to you. And by learning to communicate with them, by learning to vibrate on their level, you can perhaps also be guided by cats to see those things too, to peer into other dimensions.
Could you talk about what they do when they purr?
Well, it can be for a number of different reasons. As many of you know, it can be from a satisfactory or content space. It can also be communication in a variety of levels. Sometimes it can also be that they might be attempting to repair themselves from an illness or an injury, that they may use it to vibrate themselves back into the proper state. It also has the effect on humans of many different things, such as reducing your heart rate, reducing your blood pressure. You understand?
Yes.
So it is primarily the idea of putting one in a state by matching that frequency that will be a beneficial state. Bringing one back, shall we say, to zero or square one, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So they are good little reset buttons.
Okay.
Yes?
Are there any forms of higher selves of cats? What do they look like? The, let's say, oversouls of cats, do they have any form?
You must repeat that.
It
is not translating.
The higher selves of cats.
They can take other forms.
Is there any civilization that represents them specifically?
There are some that will relate very strongly to certain higher forms that you experience as cats that are not necessarily experienced exactly in the same way that you experience cats on your planet, because they are a different form, but may contain or represent similar energy. There are different civilizations that may relate to those beings in a variety of ways, yes, but the point is that you don't actually know those civilizations.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes, it does.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good day to you, Bashar.
And good day.
We've heard several questions tonight about cats. And a friend of mine once postulated that there was a universe that existed at the same time and within the same space as this universe.
All universes exist, in a sense, here and now.
I understand, but he said that only cats and babies could see these universes.
For the most part, they are very receptive to other dimensions of reality. It is not impossible for others to see this, and other life forms on your planet do perceive them in a variety of ways. But the cat is the general symbol on your planet of that consciousness that is, in a sense, innately capable of looking through dimensional doorways, as, of course, are children, since they have not yet learned how not to.
You've said that cats communicate with elementals.
Very often, yes.
When do cats learn to speak to elementals? Is it instinctive from birth? Are there telltale signs when the cat is doing that? And what is the conversation usually about?
It is instinctive from birth. You can usually tell, though not always, when they focus on something that you say isn't there, that you can't see, but they seem very attentive in a particular direction. Now, that's not always the case. They might be looking at something you just can't see with your own eyes. That is still in physical reality, because they have very sharp senses. But again, it can look similar. They can be engaged with something that you can't see, and you can tell they're engaged with something by their focus, their head motions, and body language, and so on and so forth. Very often, though not always the case, what it's about is something that either has to do with the cat and its relationship to you, or it has to do with things that the cat can experience when it's out of body, and the cat's life in general or specific terms. But a lot of it will usually have to do with things that are going on in the life of the human and the cat and the relationship between them, and how that might progress and evolve to including the elemental in some way, shape, or form that can be of assistance to the lives of the humans and the cats, and other animals participate in this as well. It's not just cats. But they do have a strong proclivity for this kind of activity.
When you are learning to communicate with a dog, with a cat, with a bird, you are actually taking on the resonance, fine-tuning to that resonance, and reflecting it back in a way that actually starts a back and forth kind of energy beat. And in that energy beat, as it levels itself into that particular frequency, you then start to perceive communication in the form in which it is expressed from that animal, because you are expressing that aspect within yourself, because you contain all those frequencies that are representative of all the animals and all the trees and all the rocks and the sky and the sea and everything on your planet. So it's about becoming a very fine-tuned station, a very fine-tuned antenna, receiver, and transmitter, so that you can really start to perceive those different frequencies in a very fine-grained way and really lock into them much more strongly, so that you can amplify that vibration between yourself and the life form you are communicating with, and then start to really interpret and transceive the communication in the modality that it is expressing itself from, because you become like them. This is the secret of the shamans, in the sense of actually being able to tap into parallel realities in such a way that they actually represent themselves as the animal they are in communication with. This is the source of the idea of seeing shamans turn into birds, turn into jaguars, turn into various animals. It's not in a sense that any molecular rearrangement has happened. What is happening is that, like the sages that Willa has spoken of, they have the ability to understand their connection to parallel versions of themselves in parallel realities so strongly that they can actually represent themselves and bring in a representation from a parallel reality strongly enough that you actually perceive that parallel reality representation instead of the human form.
I lost my soulmate cat, and I understand the teachings from Bashar, and that we need to change our beliefs about loss. But how do we overcome the pain of the physical sensations we no longer have with that physical being? I miss my morning and night greetings and snuggles with her. I miss everything about her, and I feel broken and devastated.
All right, well, again, the cat is still connected to you in many ways. You have to reach out into spirit, to the spirit version of the cat, in order to maintain the connection and feel the connection. But at the same time, we understand what you are going through. Even though it may be on average anywhere from 80 to 100 years before humans reincarnate, of course there are exceptions based on need and choice, but animals will often reincarnate much more quickly. And therefore, just reaching out with love to the animal may allow another animal that could be considered similar energetically, or in your perspective, a reincarnation of your cat, to come back to you. So allow yourself to feel the love connection that would then act as a draw magnetically to what would be perceived as a different cat that would contain much of the same soul energy vibration that could come to you physically. Be open. Open that door. Don't close the door. Open the door and let a new cat in that would be a continuation of the vibrational energy and would be sent by the spirit of the cat that you are familiar with.
Is that common for animal souls to come back to the same owner several times?
It's not uncommon, yes.
And the pet is like still alive and it's telling them, I'm fine, you know?
Yes.
How can that can be very reassuring, especially if you lose a loved pet. How can you generate an experience like that? Or can you communicate with your pet and ask them, please come in my dream and tell me how you are, or something like that?
Yes, you can. But again, the idea is to communicate through imagery, because that's more representative of a telepathic bond. Just see them doing it. Just see yourself interacting with them in your imagination, in your mind's eye. Visualize the idea of the interaction. Put it out there with feeling. Feel what that would be like to have that interaction that you picture. So use pictures and feelings that's the strongest way to communicate with them. And sometimes when you have those dreams, even though your pet may still be alive, the idea is that your animal is also telling you that they exist like you do in spirit, and that physical reality is simply a part of them and a temporary thing, but that your natural state is spirit. You never really leave it, and neither do they.
Can I ask you about my cat? And like, do we have connections in our past lives? Because I feel like...
Well, you know past lives is an illusion.
I mean, not in
but
other
I understand
dimensions.
What you mean.
In other dimensions.
You do. Most of you have connections with animals in other dimensions.
She's very evolved. I feel like she's more evolved than...
All the animals are more evolved than you all are.
Well, no, I'm saying more evolved than other animals.
More evolved than human.
Well, I know.
The idea, in many ways, is that's because they're specialists, not generalists.
Oh.
So they exhibit all of their intelligence in a specific focus. All they need to be is a cat. Do you understand?
Yeah.
And therefore, all their intelligence goes into being a cat. So they don't have to always think the way you do, know the things you know, because you're a generalist as a human. That's your definition. They exhibit a very high degree of intelligence. All animals do, because all they have to be is what they are. And they are specialized in that way as reflectors for you. That doesn't mean they don't have their own understanding of their own lives and their own purposes and their own choices. But what they are is highly focused. And therefore they exhibit all of their intelligence in that expression. And they don't need to generalize it. Although some animals are learning to generalize as a reflection for you, because some generalization, as in with some cats and dogs and dolphins and whales, will lure you into more of yourself as well. So they perform that function too, by being generalized when they need to be, but that's just an aspect of their specialized focus. So, the adventures that you may have with your cat, which of course isn't always a cat in other dimensions, as you understand it, do happen. You go on many adventures with your animals in other dimensions, and they take on many other forms in other dimensions that may not even really be what you would recognize as an animal.
And do animals have an ego?
Ego, in a sense, yes, is fundamentally neutral, because it's simply the device, the framework, shall we say, that you impose upon your greater consciousness in order to have what you call a physical experience. So in that sense, yes, animals have ego in the neutral sense that allows them to have a physical experience, that focuses them down, like it does for you, into something a little bit more contained, a little bit more narrow, so you can have the physical experience. Negative ego is simply when the ego is given more than it is designed to handle, and it starts, shall we say, rebelling against that, because it's not designed to be in control, to be in charge, to decide what's true for you. Your greater self is, your collective personality in alignment with your higher self, is that which is designed to decide for yourself, to choose for yourself what is really representative of your fundamental frequency. But the ego is just designed to give you clarity in the experience that you decide to have. That's all it is doing. And the positive side of that is that when the ego is simply allowed to do the job it was designed to do, it aligns more readily with your higher mind, it is experienced in a more positive way, and it almost seems to kind of disappear, other than realizing you have an identity as yourself in physical reality. So the positive side of the ego is that it becomes very transparent, almost like it's not there. The negative side is that it constantly calls your attention to it, because it thinks it has been given the task of deciding what is correct for you, or deciding what you should do or where you should go, and that's not what it's designed to do. It is simply designed to keep you focused in physical reality, and that's the neutral part of it.
What's your favorite animal?
I do not have a favorite. There are some that are more relevant to my life than others, but I do not, in that sense, discriminate from one to the other. Whatever is my favorite is whatever I'm interacting with at that moment, because that's the one that needs to be in my life at that moment. There must be a reason for it, therefore that's my favorite. At that moment, because it's there.
Do the animals look similar to the animals here, or completely
Some do,
different,
and
or?
some look completely different.
How do you think?
They are all on our planet symbiotic. We have no predators. You know why there are predators on your planet? Yeah, because you are. Now that you have changed your collective consciousness, the vibration and frequency of your reality in such a manner as you have recently done, you have created a kind of shift, a kind of change that allows us now to proceed further with this agenda of assisting you in the balancing of this energy, and allows us to move into different positions, because now you have created on your planet a very different energy which can now accelerate in positive and constructive and creative and loving ways more than ever before. So first and foremost, we will congratulate you on making a change in your collective consciousness to allow us to interact with you in a new reality. So congratulations. Now, once again, allow us to explain briefly the idea of what the shift is about in terms of what is actually mechanically happening. We understand that in human language you have many colloquial phrases for this idea of transformation and changing your world. And that is all well and good, and you can refer to this idea in any way, shape, or form you so desire. It doesn't matter. The effect is the same. But the idea is that we would like to take a moment to explain to you mechanically, physiologically, what is happening. Because sometimes when you understand the actual mechanism that you are employing in the change, it helps you make further changes, more profound changes, and have a more profound understanding of what kind of changes can be made. So, I know this is going to sound at first a little bit confusing, but that's all right. This is just an issue of semantics and language, and we will explain more clearly as we go along. So when we talk about the kind of changes that you are making and wish to make on your planet, we will begin this conversation by pointing out that nothing has changed. Why do we say that? I will tell you. Thank you. Here's what we mean by nothing has changed. The idea is really that when something in your world changes, the world you were in did not change. You changed. You shifted your frequency. You shifted your vibration. And by shifting your frequency, you have shifted your focus of consciousness to an already simultaneously coexisting parallel reality that is already existing on that frequency. You didn't change the world that was there. That world is still there. You have shifted to an already existing parallel reality that is reflective of the vibratory frequency you have shifted to personally. Thus, when you look around and see differences, it's because you have taken yourself, you have shifted yourself to a parallel earth that already had those differences in it. The old earth, the other parallel reality, still exists, still looks the same. Didn't change. But you have changed your focus of consciousness. So the idea of helping people change, of helping to change your world, is the idea really of offering other people a point of view that contains a certain frequency, a certain pitch, a certain state of being. And if they choose to match, to mirror that frequency you are offering that goes along with that different point of view, they then will see the difference in the world in which they have shifted to. They will see the difference in them reflected by the world they have shifted to. But again, the other world, still there, hasn't gone anywhere. All possible parallel realities exist now, coexist simultaneously. There is only one eternal now. Everything exists in it. We understand that from your linear space-time perspective, this may not seem to be so, but many of you are now beginning to realize this is really just an illusion. The idea really is to understand that what you call different changes, different moments, different places, different times, different experiences, even different lives, all these things coexist at the same time, so to speak. They are really just different perspectives of the same eternal now moment. So what you call the past exists right now. What you call the future exists right now. There really is no future in the future, no past in the past. Those are simply different frequencies, different experiences, all going on at the same time as what you call the present. The idea is that they're simply different viewpoints of the present. And from your linear space-time experience, the perspective you have created with the experience of linear space-time, you can create this idea that something comes before, then something comes next, then something comes after. But it doesn't really do that. An analogy we often use to illustrate this point is what you call one of your film strips on Earth. You know that when you go to watch your movie, it is made of a film strip that has many frames. Well, when you are watching the movie, from the perspective of being an audience member, you can say, well, first we see this frame, then that frame, then the next frame, then the next, and we get this illusion of continuity, this illusion of motion, this illusion of the passage of time, and things start here and things end there. However, if you are in the projection booth above the audience, you can take the film canister, you can take out the film, you can stretch out the strip of film in front of you, and you can see all the frames at the same time. You could even look at this frame first, then that frame, then that frame, then that frame, then that frame, in any order you wish. Linear space-time has been, in that sense, nullified. The idea is that all the frames exist at the same time, but from the perspective of the audience member, they only exist in sequence, to tell a story, to have an experience. But that doesn't tell you what's actually mechanically happening. It doesn't describe the existence of the film strip itself and the perspective of the projectionist who can see all the frames at the same time. This is analogous to the idea of your physical consciousness in physical reality experiencing linear physical space-time, and the idea of your higher mind, your oversoul, experiencing all your moments, all your lives at once. And the idea thus then is the reason you can connect to other lives, other experiences, is because they all exist at the same time. So you can simply cross-connect, shift your vibration. Again, another analogy, as we have often said, your television analogy. At any given moment, you can watch whatever program on your TV set you want. This does not mean there are not other programs available, but you only get the program you are tuned to at any given moment. But when you change the channel, when you shift your frequency, you get another program. Doesn't mean the program you were watching is no longer there. They all exist at the same time, but you only perceive whatever is the vibration you are tuned to within yourself. And when you change that frequency, you get different input. You get a different experience. It's as simple as that. This really is simple physics. It's really no more complicated an issue than that. And because it all exists at the same time as all the programs at any given moment do on your television set, that's why you can switch back and forth. That's why you can know things from other lives. You may think it is a memory, and in a sense, again, colloquially, you could call it a memory of a past life, or even a memory, or if you wish, a precognition of a future life. But remember, memory is created in the present. It doesn't actually come from the past. When you have a memory, you're having it now. So you're creating it from the now. In fact, because everything actually exists now, not only do you create the experience or illusion of the future from now, you also create the illusion of the experience of the past from now. And that means that when you change your now, not only have you changed your so-called future, you've actually changed your history. Literally. Now, knowing this means you can work very powerful miracles. I will give you an example. When you see someone on your planet exhibiting a certain, shall we say, habit, the idea is that sometimes you will see that they struggle to overcome this over a long period of time, but sometimes you will notice that someone can simply arrive at a moment in their lives where they recognize that's simply not something they wish to do anymore. And no matter how addictive that habit may seem, Many of you have actually witnessed people or heard of people on your planet saying, no more, that's it, what you call on your planet cold turkey. And the idea is that they do not seem to struggle with it from that point forward. It's as if they never had the habit. I'm telling you that when they change their reality that strongly, the truth is, the reason they don't exhibit any urge any longer is because they never have had the habit. Because when you become a new person, literally, you become a new person when you change your frequency every moment, and when you become a new person that has a definition that you do not now have that addiction, do not now have that habit. You actually alter all the other connections. You shift yourself to a reality where you never did. And thus that's why it is not a struggle, not an effort. No longer must you fight to overcome the habit. It simply never existed, so you're having no experience of it now. You can use your reality this way. All it takes is recalibrating your focus to understand that this is how reality is structured. And when you begin to understand this structure, the nature of physical existence in this context, you can evoke and create and manifest very powerful change. Now, I will tell you a secret about yourselves. You are all of you already, without exception, yes, without exception,
Yes.
Not even you. Already as powerful a manifester as you will ever be. You will never be a more powerful manifester than you are now. What you will refine is your understanding of what you are manifesting. You will never manifest more powerfully than you do, because you already manifest instantaneously. If you didn't, you wouldn't be having an experiential reality of any kind. To have an experiential reality, you must be manifesting it. You must be attracting it. You must be creating it. So look around. You're having a reality. Yes? Yes. So you are manifesting. The secret is, why are you manifesting what you're manifesting? Not how do I manifest better. You can't manifest any better. You're perfect manifestors. You are made in the image of the ultimate manifester, creation itself. You are perfect manifestors. So please, 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 we would suggest, strongly suggest, we're not telling you what to do. You don't have to listen to us. You don't have to believe us. But we would strongly suggest you don't spend time wondering how to become a better manifester. You're already a perfect manifester. What you need to do to see that you are a perfect manifester is focus on how you are manifesting, or why you are manifesting what it is you are manifesting. And as you change the definition of what you're manifesting, you will see more clearly and more obviously every moment of every day that you are a perfect instantaneous manifester. And now you have gotten a handle on the mechanism underlying the reasons why you are experiencing what you are experiencing. And all of this comes down to belief, definition. Again, this is physics. Your personality, your physical mind, is basically an artificial construct composed of beliefs, emotions, and thought pattern actions. When you have beliefs that are out of alignment with your true self, you cannot help but have emotions that are also out of alignment with your true self. And you cannot help but have thoughts and actions that are out of alignment with your true self. But when you have beliefs that are in alignment with your true self, likewise, emotion follows, thoughts follow, actions follow, and it all works in harmony. So the idea is not to work on becoming a better manifester, but becoming a clearer manifester, in the sense of knowing what you're manifesting by knowing what you believe to be true. Because it all stems from belief. Your entire physical reality experience stems first and foremost from what you believe to be true. You cannot even have an emotional response if you don't have a belief first. So when you have an emotion, when you have a thought, when you have an action that you don't prefer, always trace it back to what do I have to believe is true in order to feel the way I do. What do I have to believe is true in order to feel the way I do? That's the first question to always ask yourself when you find yourself in a physical reality experience that is out of alignment with what you prefer it to be. What would I have to believe is true in order to feel the way I do in this experience? If you are feeling something negative, if you are feeling fear, doubt, self-loathing, hatred, anger, shame, ask yourself, what would I have to believe is true about myself in my relationship to this situation for me to experience this emotion? Because I know that the emotion cannot be there if I don't believe something about myself to be true first. Because you notice that if you don't have a definition for something, you don't know how to feel about it. You don't have a feeling about something you have no definition for. When you do automatically, either consciously or unconsciously, apply a meaning and a definition to something, then the emotions kick in. But only then, and never before. So when you find yourself feeling something, allow yourself to feel it. Don't, in any way, shape, or form, suppress it, but examine and explore why it is there. And the first and foremost reason it is there is because you have a belief. Find out what that belief is. Now, all these things we are talking about here, we can discuss these more in a variety of ways and get clearer and clearer on how to use these mechanisms in a clear and conscious manner so that you can know that all change within yourself is, in fact, instant change. Instant change. And the only way it would seem as if change is not instantaneous is because you are making instantaneous changes that are simply not that different than the change you made before. You see the illusion that is created? If you make an instantaneous change, and in any change, everything does change within you, you shift to an entirely different reality. But if you shift yourself to an entirely different reality that looks almost identical to the last one, you won't really think that anything has changed. You will fool yourself into the illusion of thinking nothing has changed or not much has changed. And that this is a long process and an effort and a struggle. And it takes a long time. Without realizing you have actually changed everything all at once. But it simply looks pretty much the same. Because you have created it to be so with your belief that big change cannot happen quickly. That's the belief that allows you to experience the idea of change happening slowly. But if you understand that every change is a total change, a totally new reality that you've shifted to, then it's an issue of how different you define that reality, and the difference, the degree of difference in your definition of that new reality from the other one is what will allow you to see that the manifestation and the change is instantaneous. Because the only way you can gauge instantaneous change is by having a great degree of difference in the change. If you don't have a great degree of difference in it, you don't think much has changed, even though it has. So again, the idea of describing to you the notion that every change is instantaneous and every change is total, and I mean total. You are a new person in a new reality, in a new universe. Literally, take me literally. Please take me literally. I am not speaking metaphorically here. Then if you know that that is absolutely, totally different, then you can also begin to understand that it actually can be anything you really prefer it to be. At whatever rate you are comfortable with. And that's usually the big secret. At whatever rate you are comfortable with. Because for many of you, the idea of change is very scary. And you don't really want to change that much, even though you're changing instantaneously, totally. You want to create an experience that says you haven't really changed that. Oh, I don't want to be too different. People will think I'm strange, bizarre, weird, freaky, and all those other wonderful, colorful Earth terminology. Nevertheless, the truth is you change everything instantaneously. It is up to you to decide how much you want to take advantage of that fact. It's up to you. The rate, the pace, the style is up to you. All we are doing is letting you know that's the mechanism that's happening, so you don't have to spend time wondering how to make amazing, large-scale, rapid, instantaneous manifestations. That you're already doing. All you need to do is focus on why you're doing what you're doing, how you're doing it, based on what belief and why, and then you'll get a handle on how to allow yourself to redefine the reality in such a manner as to see whatever degree of change you prefer to see. And that's what it's all about. What idea, what belief is most harmoniously aligned with your true self? Now, we have said, yes, true self, out of alignment, in alignment with true self, true self. What's true self? Here's how you tell what your true self is. Once again, briefly. It is encapsulated in a term that exists on your planet called passion, joy, and excitement. The idea is that vibration, what you feel, that excitement, that physical sensation is actually the body's translation of the vibratory energy that is your true core inner being. So anytime something in your life contains that degree of excitement, we would again strongly suggest you act on it. Why? Because that's who you are. Because it is most truly you. It is your path. It is your reflection. It is your attractor. It is luring you to more of yourself. That's why things contain that feeling. That's why they reflect that feeling to you. And that's why you can know that if you act on your joy, it will support you because it's your true self. I know. You have many different belief systems on your planet that doubt the ability of your excitement to support you, and we can talk about some of those at length if you wish. Nevertheless, it does have the ability to support you. Why? Because it is you. And it is the part of you that is representative of the part of you that is made in the image of creation. And creation is nothing if not unconditionally supporting.
What if having an expectation was the reason for the action was exciting to begin with, or adds to the overall excitement? For example, if I'm planning to release a new song, part of what builds the excitement is how many people listened to it or liked it. I'm having a hard time imagining how I would be able to act on my passion for its own sake. I would really appreciate any clarity on this.
Instead of focusing on the idea of the number of people, allow yourself to focus on the knowledge that the people who need it will receive it and receive benefit from it and joy from it. Don't focus so much on the number. Remember, it's not about quantity, it's about quality, as you people say. Therefore, get excited about the quality of what you are creating in its pure form, because you know that because it contains high vibrational quality, because it has been created from your joy, your imagination and creativity, it will reach who it needs to reach and allow them to also match that vibration and experience joy and inspiration in their lives too. So focus on the quality, not the quantity.
This person would like to know, how do I know when I have truly changed my belief? I'm working on self-worth, and I can say I'm worthy and even believe it, but my circumstances are still the same. I feel stuck and I don't know what to do about it.
Remember, it's not about circumstances that tell you you've changed. It's about whether you respond differently to the same circumstances that tell you that you've changed. It shouldn't matter whether the circumstances change. If your response to it has changed, you will still get a benefit from it by staying in the positive energy. This is why this is the fourth step of the formula and why it's so important to remain in a positive state no matter what happens. Remember, it's not about what happens, it's about what you do with what happens that makes the difference. So if you're expecting the outer reality to change because you say that you've changed, you are working it backwards. It doesn't matter if the outer reality changes, because the outer reality will have only the effect on you that is determined by the state of being you create. And the state of being you create is your response to that circumstance, even if that circumstance remains the same and doesn't change. It's your response that needs to change, your energy that needs to change, your relationship to it that needs to change and is what determines you have truly changed, not whether the outside changes or not.
Okay. And this person is interested in letting go of limiting beliefs. He says, or she says, I've been applying your principles recently and feel much better overall. I've noticed, however, that I still have limiting beliefs that I'm holding on to and want to explore them further to let go. This has been my focus for the past few months. Sometimes, though, answers don't come or the same limiting belief keeps resurfacing. How can I ensure I've successfully let go of a belief? What would be the sign that it's resolved?
The sign that it's resolved would be that the belief no longer makes any sense to hold on to, because you don't hold on to beliefs that don't make sense to do so. Again, this goes to what we have said about the motivational mechanism in humans. You only hold on to beliefs that you believe actually serve you. Even if you know intellectually that they don't, you must believe the alternative is worse, or you wouldn't hold on to the beliefs that you have. It must be that you view the belief that you're holding on to, even if you know it's not to your benefit, as being safer as a belief, more familiar as a belief, easier to deal with than the alternative should you decide to let it go and change your belief. So you have to find out what it is you're afraid would happen if you actually changed the belief. If you have a belief that says the alternative is worse, then you will still hold on to whatever it is you're holding on to that you know may not be serving you, but you believe serves you better than the alternative. So again, it takes self-investigation and transparency to understand why you're holding on to it, and it's usually because you believe that to let go of it or to go into another belief system, that something worse would happen than what you're already experiencing. So you just need more and deeper investigation of yourself as to what you are afraid would happen if you did in fact change your belief.
Okay. And this next set of questions is about the drones
Yes,
have been happening recently. So
we will answer them all in one statement. Most of the drones that you have been seeing have to do with man-made devices, human-made devices that are surveilling, observing, and protecting against incursions from others with ill intent. Some of the drones may be extraterrestrial vehicles disguised as drones, but many of the drones, even the ones that are human-made, military-made, that are involved in this surveillance and observation, may still be being coordinated by extraterrestrial beings in terms of the information that is being gathered by the drones that is important for preventing others of ill intent from doing actions that would be detrimental to many of the societies on your planet. So it's a very complex and involved operation that involves not only your military, but also extraterrestrials on another level to help coordinate information that provides the protection necessary to prevent actions that have ill intent from happening in your world. And that is all we will say at this time.
okay. Well, that's helpful because I'm sure a lot of people are wondering what is going on.
That is what is going on.
Okay, so moving along here to some additional questions. Here's an individual saying that they did the sacred circuits for 3 months, but they felt no positive changes. I tried talking with them, but received no communication back. I tried looking at them and taking their shapes, and I also tried looking at them while solely functioning on focusing on the energy. I was feeling something from each symbol, and then I noticed that the symbol's energy lasted for a few hours or less, but then it wore off. What is the best way to use the sacred circuits to have impact fully on transformation?
It appears that you are only using them energetically and not connecting the changes that they make in your neurological circuitry to the idea of then performing physical actions in service to humanity after you utilize the circuits. That's what they're for. It's not just about sitting there and trying to feel changes in your energy. It's about using the circuits to rearrange the energy paths in your body, the neurological paths in your body, to make you more superconductive, hyperconductive, of higher frequency energies, and then to take the actions that are necessary to act on your passion in service to humanity. So it's a two-part process. It's not just about meditating on the circuits, because then you're not really flowing the energy that the circuits are helping you change within yourself in a way that is pragmatic and grounded in your physical reality. So it's not just about experiencing energy changes, it's about putting them into action.
Okay, thank you. How do we exist in the here and now, the present moment, and still be there for our future selves? For instance, how do we stay tuned into the present channel and still be able to make long-term, sometimes difficult choices that will benefit us later, but may be difficult in the now?
Again, the challenges that you face in the now determine what you will experience in the next now, which is what you call the future. Stay present with the challenge. Again, follow the formula in dealing with any challenge. It will allow you to set up the vibrational patterns that will allow you to experience the next present now in the way that will continue to move you forward in a beneficial way. That is what you do.
Okay, now this question is about free will. You teach us that we have some free will about how we will live our lives and explore our themes, and have given the analogy that it's like getting to choose how we walk down a hallway. But some other teachings say, well, really, all of this is just one non-dual thing happening, and there's not even any self or doer to choose anything, and that free will is an illusion. Can you help reconcile this?
You have free will as a soul. You have free will as a physical entity. On a certain level, you could say that it is a non-dual experience, but on the physical level, that is not the case. Because you have given yourself the opportunity to have 2 points of view, that of the soul or the higher mind, that of the physical personality, you then have the opportunity to express different forms, different expressions of free will. The free will of the soul that chose the life path, the free will of the physical personality that determines how you will live that life path. So the idea that it is an illusion is true only in the sense that the idea of an illusion is simply another way of saying it's a projection that gives you an opportunity to have a certain kind of an experience. Many people use the word illusion in the sense that for some reason, just because something is an illusion, that it has no meaningful content, that it means nothing. This is not the case. That is one definition of an illusion in a certain context, but it's not the way we're using the word at all. The idea that your physical reality is an illusion doesn't mean it doesn't have the meaning that you give it, and doesn't mean it isn't a worthwhile experience that helps you learn lessons and helps you grow. It simply means it's a technique of consciousness projection that gives you a scenario in which you can learn those lessons and experience that growth and those processes that lead to it. So please do not misunderstand that when we use the term illusion, that doesn't mean it's worthless. That doesn't mean it's negative. That doesn't mean it doesn't serve a function. That's not the way in which we're using the word illusion.
Thank you. This question is, has everything there is already been created? So how has everything there is already been created in all dimensions, and we are just experiencing it over and over again? But since we make ourselves forget, it feels like we're playing a new game for the first time? Or
In a
is
sense,
all that isness still constantly expanding?
as we have explained, in a sense that is so. But the idea is that the structure, yes, already exists, all of it. It's your relationship to it, your experience of it, and your perspective of it that expands and allows creation to grow. So it's both. The structure already exists and is infinite, but there are certain portions of it that are relevant for your life path, and your relationship, your perspective, and your experience of that structure relative to your life path is what allows you to discover a new perspective of yourself and to grow. It's the way that all that is has of experiencing itself in all the ways that it can. So it already exists as a structure, but it doesn't necessarily already experience itself in all the ways that it can. That never ends, because it's all based on how you decide to experience your relationship to that structure, your experience of that structure, your perspective of that structure, that continues to allow all that is to experience new perspectives of itself, new awareness of itself, new expansions of itself within the structure that never changes.
Quite amazing.
Yes.
This individual is asking a question about weight. You've said that our soul comes to Earth to have a particular set of experiences. For instance, it seems to me that my soul wanted to experience being overweight and unhealthy. Now, my human self disagrees with that and really wants to be healthy. Who wins here, the soul or the human body? Is it possible that the soul's desire experience is so strong that the human body can't change it or move to a timeline where the human's preferred experience, regardless of how many permission slips the human uses?
Usually, when the soul determines a particular kind of experience as a starting point, that usually allows the physical being to use that in order to create a transformational experience to go in a different direction. So the idea may be that there is resistance within your belief system that prevents you from transforming this in order to lose the weight that the soul is giving you as a starting point to have a challenge to face and overcome. It is relatively rare that the soul would choose something in that context, though not impossible, that is impossible to change. And if that is the case, then there is purpose to it that teaches other people some different kind of lesson relevant and relative to their interactions and relationship with you, who is unable to lose that weight. This is very rare, but the idea is that it's not impossible, that the weight needs to be maintained in order to teach other people a lesson in terms of how they relate to people who have that kind of weight. However, it doesn't mean that you cannot change the circumstance if you get in touch with the idea of what that symbol that the soul has chosen represents and what lessons can be learned by others by maintaining it. Then you may be able to transform it and yet still create a situation that allows people to change the way in which they relate to people who do have the excessive weight, by forming some kind of an organization that will allow people to learn to look at people like that in a different way, to have compassion and empathy for the challenges that they're facing, and to perhaps help them learn different ways in which they can transform that challenge. So the idea can be used in a variety of ways. It doesn't mean you can't transform it, but it may mean you have to figure out a way to still help people understand the same lesson that maintaining the weight would teach them if it is for the purpose of other people learning lessons from a person who has the excessive weight. So you can lose the weight if you can still figure out a way to help people learn the same lesson when you don't have the weight.
In continuation with that idea, it appears that being of service is some of the highest vibrational states one can be in.
Yes.
And the idea that humans as personalities prefer to experience positive, fun, exciting experiences of reality. And yet, as part of their soul contract, they may have come in with a willingness to experience great suffering in order to assist others. How do we
Yes.
reconcile those two perspectives?
Because the idea is that what you call suffering can be looked at in a different way, where it can be transformed simply into the energy of the lessons that others need to learn, so that the person experiencing that particular choice of the soul doesn't actually have to experience it as suffering, even though others may perceive it as such. So this requires a great advancement of the energy of that person and the awareness of that consciousness to learn how to still give off the vibration of the lesson that others may need to learn through perceiving them as suffering while they themselves do not suffer.
And perhaps an example of that would be what happened with Christopher Reeve when
Yes.
he portrayed being Superman and
Yes.
then had that experience that changed his entire existence as a
Yes.
personality.
Yes, that can be some of it. So when something like that gets to a point where it seems inevitable and it's unlikely to change, then it can be seen perhaps as a lesson for others to learn how to relate to it in ways that he may have demonstrated that allow him to overcome what most people would consider to be the limitations of that physical experience.
Okay, so it takes a lot of vibrational uplifting in order to really understand these ideas.
It takes the advancement of the energy of that personality to more closely match the frequency of the soul itself. Yes.
Wow. And I guess the animals kind of demonstrate that because if they come from the angelic realm and they're willing to experience what we perceive they experience here on Earth,
Yes.
that would be a prime example of what you're speaking of.
Absolutely, because they allow people to become more sensitive to the idea of what appears to be their suffering, so as to change things in terms of your relationship to the idea of animals, so that you can be more supportive, more loving, and more kind to them, at the same time learning how to do that for yourselves. They are great teachers.
Yes. If we are creating our own reality experience, and if things in our world, including you and other spiritual teachers, are part of the illusion of physical reality, how can we trust you or any teachings in the physical world to be accurate and not just more illusions or reflections of our own beliefs or something like that?
This is what we said before. Many people on your planet are using the word illusion as if it has absolutely no value, as if it is simply nothingness, as if it is a trick, as if it is a deception. That's not the way we're using the word illusion. The way we use the word illusion is simply a description of the idea that what you're experiencing as a physical reality is a projection of your consciousness. Let me give you a simple example. When you go and look at a movie, in a sense, the movie is an illusion. You're not actually looking at people in real life, so to speak. You're looking at something that is a projection onto a screen. Yet the story has great value, can even be very emotionally moving to you, can help teach you lessons. So you could say, well, the movie is an illusion, but it has value, it has worth in the experience that you are taken through by watching that movie, by relating to the characters in the movie. Again, another form of story. So the idea is not to invalidate the concept of the word illusion in the context that we are using it. It's just a way of describing that you're using a particular device to experience the meaning you're giving into life, the experience of the lessons you need to learn from life, and the processes that you need to experience for your soul's growth. So it's up to you to determine through your synchronicity that what you've attracted yourself to in this experience, whether you are understanding it to be an illusion or not, is simply your way of reflecting to yourself what you need to know to determine what's true and what's not true for you as a being. So please do not devalue the concept of the illusion. It's nothing more than the device you're using, like a movie, to tell yourself a story that helps you learn lessons and helps you grow and helps you understand who you are relative to the big picture in life.
We, last night of your time, also mentioned that we would be speaking about the idea of the transformation itself, the accelerating wave of collective consciousness that many of you have intuitively recognized reaches a critical mass threshold in and around your cycle that you call 2012. This simply represents the idea of crossing into critical mass, where you have the potential for total positive reality. You have that now, of course. But after 2012, the idea of positive energy will be so much more available to so many more of you that if you should choose to ride the crest of that wave, the leading edge of that wave of consciousness, you can accelerate so rapidly, you can attract to yourself so rapidly the things that are representative of your passion, of your joy, without knowing in any way, shape, or form how these things could have happened, beyond reason, beyond logic, that again, your life will become literally so dreamlike, it will be at first dizzying and disorienting until you get used to it. Literally, you'll be walking through life like it's a dream, marveling at the miraculous synchronicities that just are popping up as a matter of course. Yes. When you ride the leading edge of the wave of consciousness. If, however, you choose to continue to compartmentalize your physical mind and make it responsible for being in charge, and have to know the how, and have to know the why, and have to know all the details before you'll be willing to believe that the higher self can simply bring this to you, then you will, by choice, position yourself somewhere down the line from the leading edge, in some of the eddies and currents and backwashes in the wake of the leading edge. Now, it doesn't mean that you cannot find benefit in those locations, in those gradations of frequency behind the leading edge. But wherever it is you position yourself, you simply have to understand the effect you create will be absolutely directly commensurate with where you have positioned yourself, and it will not be any more than that. By definition, it cannot be any more than that. As an analogy, your visible spectrum of light. You understand that in the visible spectrum of light, red is a low frequency, the lowest visible frequency you can perceive with your eyes. Violet is the highest visible frequency you can perceive with your eyes in general. We understand many of you are beginning to stretch these boundaries, but for the purpose of this illustration, let's just stick with the common labeling of this visible spectrum. Now, you know, if something exists on the frequency of violet light, it's at a very high level of frequency, very high level of energy. And it will experience the things that go hand in hand with that level. If something chooses to exist on the other end of the spectrum, in the red frequency, it will be functioning at a lower wavelength, a slower wavelength, a lower vibration, and will only experience the things that are commensurate with that level in the spectrum. It's all energy, it's all light, it's all the same stuff, as you say, but the difference in gradation of the vibrational frequency will ultimately determine what is capable of being experienced on that level. If you're operating at a certain wavelength toward the lower end of that spectrum, you will only perceive red. Only! You will never perceive violet at that end of the spectrum. If you are operating at the violet end of the spectrum on a high frequency level, you will only perceive violet. You will never perceive red at that end of the spectrum. Ever. So, the leading edge of the wave of your collective consciousness on this transformation, you can live there and ride the crest, or you can allow yourself to float back into the wake. Somewhere in there will be vibrations that will be representative of whatever degree you are willing to allow your belief system to take hold. So, you must understand that if you do that, there are consequences to that. The consequence being that you can only perceive what is directly commensurate with the level you're on, and nothing else. Nothing lower, but nothing higher. But you are all capable of choosing to ride the crest, the leading edge. All right. Now, when some of you consider this, you get scared. It's going too fast for me. I might fall off. I might crash. I might smack into a brick wall. As if suddenly one would appear. Of course it will if you create it. But again, understand that if you create that brick wall, that's an indication you are no longer on the leading edge. Brick walls do not exist, by definition, on the leading edge. They only exist back down the line, in the wake, in one of the eddies, in one of the currents that is representative of belief systems that there are such things as brick walls. But if you're truly riding the leading edge, truly, as you say, surfing the crest, then you will understand that just like being on the top of the mountain, you have a clear and unobstructed view of everything in front of you. And you ride that wave right into ecstasy. Ride the leading edge of the ecstasy. Allow yourself the opportunity to know you can. You don't have to choose to. But then if you don't be surprised by what is commensurate for that level. It's completely up to you what to lock onto, what to believe, what to align with, what to associate yourself with. You can, on one hand, say, I understand these concepts. I believe these concepts. I will live these concepts. I am this idea. It can happen instantly, effortlessly, miraculously, wonderfully, joyfully, creatively, lovingly, now for me. Or you can recognize that you tend, quote unquote, choose to gravitate more to informational sources that confirm your own fear. Well, one should take their time. Well, one has to be careful with this stuff. Now, we understand that there is such a thing as recognizing and honoring whatever belief system you happen to have, and not pushing yourself beyond it if you truly don't believe you can, because that would simply be disastrous. But the idea is to understand and to clearly take responsibility for knowing that if you are aligning with someone that says, well, you know, you can't just go full throttle because you have to be careful that you're not doing this and you're not doing that. You might fool yourself here, you might fool yourself there, and you have to take it easy. If you align yourself with that, that's all well and good. But understand that you are choosing to, and it has nothing at all to do with the fact that you could change your belief and allow yourself to ride the leading edge where things manifest instantaneously. You could. But if you are not, it's your choice. And that's, once again, where you really need to be passionate about being passionate and find out why you are choosing to not ride the leading edge. You will obviously have your own reason for not doing so. Whatever that reason is, whatever you feel is the need for safety, is up to you to determine. But just take responsibility and recognize the responsibility and the choice that you are making for understanding that it's not empirically true that you have to do it that way. It's not empirically true that you have to listen to what that person is saying as opposed to what this person is saying. It's just your choice. Take responsibility for it and then be passionate about finding out why you believe what you do, so that you can, if you are willing, open up to new beliefs that will allow you to move up the spectrum and be in the violet instead of in the red, financially speaking. So, allow yourselves to simply at every given moment recognize what you're doing. Let go of the need to understand the how of it. Because you see, one of the things that stops many of you from having the experiences that were described in the recording is that, for example, when someone says, well, you know, I simply got into the state where I believed I would simply receive more checks. Your physical, logical, reasonable mind goes, well, where the heck are they supposed to come from? I haven't done anything to earn that money. What are you saying? That some stranger just suddenly going to get into his head to pop a check in the mail to me for no reason whatsoever, and I'm just going to go to my mailbox and open a check that comes from a total stranger that's suddenly giving me exactly what I want? Yes! Yes, that is what's being said. Yes, that is one possible way. Yes, that is one possible example of what could happen. But when your logical, reasonable, physical mind going, how does that make any sense? The thing to remind it is that it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to make sense. When you stop needing it to make sense, then you'll make dollars. You have got to give up. You've got to give up your need, your physical mind's need for everything to have a reason, for everything to make logical sense in the physical third-dimensional world. If you say you wish to live in fourth-density reality, you must give up the things that are commensurate with the three-dimensional world, such as logic, reason. Not totally. I'm not saying be willy-nilly, fly by the seat of your pants people. I'm saying be aware of the fact that these things are simply points of view, and that you often stop yourselves from allowing these things to come to you because you logic them to death. You detail them to death, literally. You look for a chain of reasonable connection. And believe me, in fourth density reality, there are many chains that to a third density mind are not reasonable or rational at all. You have asked us, how do we travel from star to star? And we have explained to you, we don't travel from star to star. We're simply here, then we're simply there. the logical mind boggles. But how did you get there? How is it possible to go from here to there without stepping on all the places in between? That's not rational. That's not logical. Yes, it is from a different point of view. I'm talking about not abandoning logic. I'm talking about higher logic. The logic that comes from standing on the mountaintop where you can see the entire valley, the entire network, and where it makes sense to you on the mountaintop to say, if you actually go back 3 steps and then to the left, you're actually going to get there more quickly than if you just go straight ahead. Whereas down in the valley, the logical mind self is going, but everyone knows the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, and if I go backwards, how can I get there sooner than if I go forwards? How? And the higher self goes, ugh. Because I can see that if you go forward there, the bridge is out, and if you take 3 steps back and go to the left, you go on a parallel road where the bridge is fine. But the point is that the language of the higher self cannot always communicate all those specifics to the physical mind, because the physical mind does not always have the capacity for that kind of translation. The only way that dialogue, most often than not from the higher self, translates to the physical mind is simply suddenly the urge to go back. The urge itself, the intuition itself, in the physical mind is the condensation and capsulization of the entire explanation from the higher self, saying, if you go 3 steps back and then go to the left and go down the parallel road, then the bridge is up. But all the physical mind will get is the tug. That's how it translates in physical reality, because the physical mind is not capable of actually perceiving in the same way the higher self is, and doesn't have to know all the reasons why and how. All it needs to do is know that that's part of who you are, and allow yourself to recognize that that is a communication, and to follow it, and that you have received the information that you need, because it's on the same wavelength of your joy, of your passion. Why? Because you say it is. And you flow with it, and thus find out that it is. Or resist it for as long as you want, and keep walking on the same road until you get to the washed out bridge and go, oh, why didn't I listen to my intuition back there? Because you thought you were in charge, smarty. But you're not. Not you alone. You are in charge, but not you alone, physical mind. Physical mind, higher self, that's the you that's in charge. Both aspects of your being is the persona, not just the physical personality self. That's only a part of it. So if you want to know you're in charge, you have to behave like the whole you. And be willing to open up and receive and perceive in whatever way it works for you, the dialogue and the communication coming from the portion of yourself that is the higher self, that has the higher point of view, that has the bigger picture. And be willing to understand it's working on your behalf. It's not going to trick you. It's not going to deceive you. The only thing in your reality that can create the idea of tricks and deception is the physical mind's belief system, not the higher self. Because it is only in physical, three-dimensional reality that you can have the experience of a personality structure that can actually deny its own truth. So any tricks, any deception that you may be afraid of encountering can only actually be coming from the personality aspect that's actually afraid it's going to be deceived. That's the paradox. It can't come from the higher self because that's a bigger picture point of view. And it can clearly see the road. And there is no reason, there is no logic for the higher self to go, yeah, take the left road.
Watch and see how my lower self falls into the river. This ought to be fun. Oops, I went with it. You are under the assumption that the higher self is immune from what you experience in physical reality. Incorrect. You are one being, and the higher self will suffer the slings and arrows that the physical mind shoots itself with. You are one being, and it is not detached from you, and it is not immune to the consequences of the physical mind's choices. But because the higher self is closer to the vibration of unconditional love, it will overlook it. Again and again and again and again. Attempting to unconditionally loving you, reminding you, please take the other road, please. Oh, here we go again. It is not immune to the consequences of the physical mind's acts and choices. Do not assume that it is. But it is close enough to unconditional love to forgive it and to keep giving you the benefit of the doubt. That's the relationship of your higher self. That's its job. To keep on guiding you no matter what. Because it is the vibration of unconditional love that the physical mind often refuses to allow itself to perceive. Through the belief systems it chooses to buy into that deny its truth to itself. So, higher self says, please, 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 please know you are loved. Please, please, please allow me to love you. Please, please, please love yourself enough to know you're not alone in this. That you don't have to do it all. That you weren't designed to. You weren't expected to. Ever. Not once. Carry this burden by yourself. Let me be your guide because I am you. Become familiar with that portion of yourself. It is not detached. It is not separate. It is not aloof. It is not in its own realm unaware of what you are choosing to experience. It will also experience it in its own way. But nevertheless, will always overlook it and always urge you forward. Or left, or back, or whatever is necessary. Take a deep breath and let this sink in deeply, deeply, deeply. And allow yourself to at least consider the possibility that you deserve to be on the leading edge of the crest of the wave of consciousness of the transformation. Take another deep breath. Now, in terms of your time frame, what is the time remaining for this?